this part I had a plan to tell you where science hid God and our free will, but I think that it will be more beneficial to expose a few obvious and very dangerous lies of science first. To some extent, this part will tell you how science hid truth, or God, and how science, by lying, manipulated us, how science took away our free will, how science and scientists are making choices instead of us too. I have heard that very distinguished physicist of the 20th century, Richard Feynman, had said, "Let no one fool you. Science doesn't explain, it only describes." I couldn't find if that quote really belongs to him or not, but nevertheless I agree with it and I will use it. In nature there are real laws, and those laws are called by scientists absolute truth. And then we have approximations of laws, which are not called approximations of laws, but scientific laws or just laws. And scientists know that they will never ever know the real laws, the absolute truth. They will always operate with approximations. So there is a real world and real laws, and there we have imaginary world, a model of the real world with scientific laws, which are not the same as the real laws are. The agreement between both is fairly good in certain areas, but not at all areas. But because of fairly good agreement, science is able to give some predictions or prophecies about the future. And that is the reason why I had and many other people still have faith in science. You just don't hear scientists saying that they don't know the absolute truth, that they operate with approximations of laws and not the real laws. Why not? Many people would lose their faith in them. Scientists would lose worship of people, prestige, money, power. And science would be hurt, and that is not in their interest, so they cover up the truth. And they are telling things nicer as they are, just to fool people. In the name of truth, they are basically lying. And this lie leads toward another lie. If they cover up from pupils and students that science doesn't know the absolute truth, they cannot tell them that there are many different possible descriptions of the world, that there are many possible physics which could exist. We are using only one. Reality could be described in a completely different way, using cellular automata or strings, for example. There were attempts by scientists to build a model of the real world using those two approaches too. And we know that in science we have many different competing theories, models of the reality. And the question pops out, which one was and is better? One describes phenomena using one or another theory, but one is not explaining what the real thing is all about. One is explaining how things work in a particular model of reality, which is not real. And in such a manner, scientists fool themselves and the others that they are explaining the real thing, but they aren't. I thought that I knew what is mass and what is force and what is energy. I did many calculations and finished study of physics. Surely I would have to know what are those concepts. And many physicists think that they know too, but they don't. We define mass with force and force with mass, and we define force with energy and energy with mass. But we don't really know what is mass, nor what is force, nor what is energy. We don't. We can describe those concepts, but what they really are, we don't know. We sometimes describe electrons and even atoms as particles, and sometimes as waves, and sometimes we describe light or energy as wave, and sometimes as a particle, photon. So what is electron? What is atom? What is light? Is it a wave or a particle? It cannot be both. And physicists tried to figure it out, but they couldn't, so today we use both descriptions, as we find it appropriate. And what is an atom? According to physics of today, it is basically an empty space with mass, whatever that is, concentrated in a fairly small place. What color is atom? In school we are shown many models of atom, but that is not an atom, it is only a model. Besides that, the concept of atom in physics is basically nothingness. It doesn't have any color either. And so many people were brainwashed regarding science. They are lovers of science, strong believers. Of course they are, because they don't know the truth. Many times it is said that scientists have proved this and that theory or hypothesis, but this is a lie. Those people who know how science really works, they would never ever say such a stupid thing. Karl Popper, who is generally regarded as one of the greatest philosophers of science of the 20th century, said that a theory in the empirical sciences can never be proven, but it can be only falsified. His statement is in agreement with scientific observation that we will never ever be able to know the absolute truth using scientific approach. Your theory might give good predictions in one field, in one area, for one phenomenon, for one experiment and for the other. But then another experiment is performed and your theory doesn't give good enough predictions. Or maybe it gives completely wrong predictions, and that means that your theory was proven false. But that doesn't mean that scientists will stop using it. It works, it gives good predictions in one limited area of investigation, but as a whole it is wrong. Typical such an example is Newtonian mechanics. Every scientist knows that Newtonian mechanics is completely wrong, but it is being taught as a fact in schools, and we use it. Why? Because it gives fairly good predictions, but as a whole it is wrong. That's why we had to come up with quantum mechanics and with theory of relativity and with electromagnetic theory. I would like to emphasize here the difference between knowledge which is given to us from the highest intelligence and the knowledge which is being built by us and by lower spirits. I have told you what are basic assumptions regarding the Bible, and those assumptions are confirmed by the Bible. They are proven to be right. And here we have the topmost formulation, description, how science works, and we cannot prove that formulation. It makes sense, it fits our observation, but it is only a hypothesis, empirical theory, and according to that theory itself, it can never be proven that it is right. It can only be proven that it is false. So you see, everything collapses. Using only science, we cannot even know how science works. Even this theory, which tries to explain how science works, cannot prove itself. And there was another deceit scientists used to deceive people. Many of them were not even aware of that. They used double speech. What is double speech? When you use words with two different meanings, many times with a completely opposite meaning, you use double speech. There are two meanings of the word theory. One is commonly known. When something is a theory, it is not thought to be adequately confirmed by experiments yet. It is more like hypothesis, speculation, a theory needing investigation. And the other meaning is scientific principle to explain phenomena and which is accepted as adequately confirmed by experiments, as a good enough approximation of the truth. Let's take a look only on one example how people were misled by this double speech. People were upset regarding evolution, and to them it was told that this is only a theory. But that theory was accepted by its propagators as a fact, and they taught it as a fact, and in newspapers they wrote about it as a fact. And because of that, it became a fact in the minds of people. And if today someone says that evolution is only a theory, he is mocked, because theory of evolution is regarded as a scientific theory, which is being considered to be adequately supported by experiments. Double speech is a very disgusting manipulation, a lie. Let's say you would give to Mr. Liar 10,000 euros, and you would write down, you, Mr. XY or Mrs. XX, gave to Mr. Liar 10,000 euros, and this money has to be returned in 1 year. And witnesses would sign under the writings. And then after a year, you would visit Mr. Liar and ask him, "Where is my money?" And he would ask you, "What money?" "You know, my money. Here, I'm giving you the proof that you owe me money." And Mr. Liar would read it and call his strong friends, bankers, and they would laugh at you, that you are stupid because the word gave means in their country or in their profession to owe. So according to them you have the proof that it is you who owe Mr. Liar 10,000 euros. You see, you are the bad guy here. That was double speech. You were cheated. The same thing happened with the theory of evolution. Yes, it is only a theory, a speculation, and then overnight it became the theory. something which is regarded as the truth. Science uses exact language, but when she and her power is in question, she uses double speech, to trick people and to take their energy from them for her own growth. She doesn't mind using manipulation, lies in the name of honesty and truth. Her laws are not the real laws, but only approximations of laws. Science has figured out that no theory of hers will never ever be proven to be right, but still we read and we hear people claiming that this theory was proven. And scientists are using words such as theory, which have one meaning for them and the other for stupid people whose only right is to support all-powerful and all-knowing science and to be cheated. I will show you in the next videos, if God willing, from scientific point of view, the lies of Galileo Galilei, Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein. It is so easy to see those lies or very serious mistakes, and lies or mistakes of evolution too. There are many. Let me tell you for now only one of them. Once again, if you are a scientist and you claim that you love truth, you should protest when pupils, students, are being manipulated when they are being told lies about your theory. When I was in primary school, they told me about evolution as a fact, and as a proof they showed us their tree of life. According to the theory, animals have many common ancestors. But when you look at that tree, they should be there. But they aren't, so where are they? On poster of the Tree of Life, which was used in schools nationwide, there were two animals or group of animals drawn in such a way to suggest that they are common ancestor of other animals which live today. Fish were one such example. And when I saw that, I accepted that as a proof and the theory as a truth. And later, after accepting the theory, I found out that fish are not our ancestors. There exist some fish which have lungs, and they could be the missing ancestors, but they aren't. There exists platypus, which could be one of common ancestors of reptiles and mammals, but it is not. If we would find only its skeleton, we could claim that he is the missing link, but now when we have analyzed it, we know that platypus is not a common ancestor of reptiles and mammals. There should be many common ancestors, but we have found none. And to us as students it was said, lungfish and platypus are not common ancestor of any two groups of animals, but you can imagine such an ancestor which resembles them. You see, that is not the experimental science, but blind faith which is not supported by proofs. And when will science find common ancestors? Wait, we will, someday, one day. It was their answer. And whatever missing link they claimed that they had found, that thing was published as a great news in media. And when it was found out that that is not a missing link, media either didn't report that or they reported that as a small notice. And in that way people's thoughts were manipulated. If you can justify that, please don't tell that to others, because they will rob you. They will lend some money from you and they will say that you will get the money the next week. And when the next week would come, they would tell you that they will pay you the next week. Have patience and trust. And after 20 years, 40 years, 100 years, no money. And if you are just, and if you justify lie of science, you have to justify also those people who would not return you any money. And even more, those people would tell everyone that they returned you money. And when they would be confronted that they didn't, they would say to you, "Oh, that's right, but we will." And even more, their friends would forge your signature and letter in which it would be written that you have received that money. And when you would prove that the letter was forged, those friends would say, "Yes, it is forged, but we thought that our friend returned you money, and he will, so what is big deal here?" And even more, those people could say to you, "Well, we didn't return you money, but you can imagine that you have received it." If you couldn't justify such people and their deeds as fine, if you would claim that you were stolen and cheated, then please know that you neither cannot justify what was done and is being done in indoctrination institutions, which are called educational institutions, where your children are obliged by the law to give up their right to know the truth and not to be manipulated. I love the theory of evolution, and when I was confronted with its many lies, I have fought within myself for a month before rejecting it. At that time I was in the occult, and at that time I believed in the theory which preceded Charles Darwin's theory. I believed in evolution of soul, so to speak, which is also a lie. Let me give you another example. At the end of the 90s, nanotechnology became popular. Media wrote only good things about it. That we will be able to make nanorobots which could perform different kinds of surgeries which cannot be done today. But you don't need to be genius to figure it out that the same robots could be used also to kill anyone who doesn't agree with you. Nanorobots are the way toward complete enslavement of humans. But about that scientists nor others didn't write. Otherwise no one would support them. And another thing which was advertised were drugs which could be made for one particular individual. And that is great, they said. And it is. But the same technology can be used to poison only one particular individual who doesn't agree with the religion of today, or poison can be made which will kill only a particular group of people. People of particular age, of particular sex, race, color of eyes, level of intelligence, you name it. Such kind of abuses will happen. Why? Because science doesn't have any mechanism to prevent it. At the end of my studies, I had to start to think in which area of scientific research will I work, and nanotechnology was one such area. But when I investigated the thing a little bit deeper, I found out that when producing nanoparticles, many microparticles are produced, and in scientific article it was said that microparticles are very toxic. And I said to myself, if that is true for microparticles, then nanoparticles can be even more toxic. They can mess up the processes in cells. And 5 or 6 years later, one scientist, who I know, had a lecture about that, how dangerous nanotechnology is for those who are working in that field. That scientist was quiet about dangers of nanotechnology for ordinary people. And in that time, nanoparticles came on market and no one protested. One could impregnate one's clothes with them. That clothes might be more stain resistant, but at the same time one's skin would be endangered, and water and animals and cells in our bodies, but no one cared. No environmental organization, no religious group, no scientist, no one. Only money matters and stupidity. We know how to destroy ourselves and we like it. Another kind of manipulation was done in the area of genetically altered plants and animals. Those scientists don't know what they are doing. If you would have a car which is worth 10 years' salary, would you give it to a teenager who doesn't know anything about machines, but he has a lot of tools? Would you give it to him and say, improve it please? I guess not. The probability that he will improve your car is almost zero. The probability that he will destroy it is practically 100%, and so it is with genetically altered plants and animals. So the strategy was, let's talk, let's use reason. And they talked, and behind the doors they have produced and put into nature many genetically altered organisms, and for many of them we know that they are dangerous. And now it is too late. Practically everything is already destroyed by their genetically altered organisms. Whatever influences we know that those organisms have on us, we know that they are harmful to us. But there are many we are not even aware of. If they would be honest, they would stop with their research and they would talk. Maybe they could do research on Moon or Mars and not in nature. But they talked, and at the same time they were continued doing evil. It is as if someone would like to rob you and you would protest. And that robber would say to you, oh, you are such a fanatic and aggressive person, you lost your mind. Let's talk, we are adults, let's solve things with talk. And he would talk with you, and while talking, he would continue robbing you. And when he would take everything from you, all those talks and common reason would not mean a thing. And that was done in this area of scientific research. And we robbed our children of their health and future. Only a couple of people cared, and many of them were put in prison. Majority didn't care. You might say that those things are innocent manipulations, But one has to ask himself, why using any manipulation at all? Why using lying proofs? The only answer I can find is because one lacks the real proofs. If you forge proofs, that is serious, that's serious. And only two more things for today. The next time, if God willing, I will show you where science has hidden God and your free will with your consent, And then, in the next videos, I will show you, if God willing, in a very simple way, where Galileo was wrong, Isaac Newton was wrong, and Einstein was wrong. And Charles Darwin, well, his theory was and is a joke. A bad one, but still a joke. And you don't need to be a scientist to understand those things. It is very, very simple. So two more stories for today. The first one. In the court, there were two men. One was telling the truth, the other one was lying. The testimony of that one who was telling the truth was almost incredible and unpleasant too, because his testimony did convict the members of the jury. And the testimony of the liar was nice, convincing, praising the jury and convicting the first witness, the first man. In the court were also children of the members of the jury. What are members of the jury to do? If they continue questioning the first witness, they and their children, their friends, will see that his testimony makes more and more sense. They could see that there is better and better agreement with his testimony and the real world, what they have observed. And if they continue to question the second one, there will be less and less agreement and less sense. And everyone would know who is telling the truth and who is lying. So what is the jury to do? You are that jury. You are judging right now what you will do. Will you continue with your questions or not? Will you condemn the Word of God, Jesus Christ, the Bible, or science? But know this, the first witness, he is God, and all power is his. If you condemn him, you are condemning yourself, and there will be no return back. You will enjoy your life until he will reveal himself completely, until he will show you who he is and who you are, and that will not be pleasant. I received a great mercy as every Christian who was born again did. It was shown to me what I have done. Those are shameful things, things which I was proud before. All those things we cannot hide, you know, and so it is with your life. At first, his testimony will not be pleasant. The truth is not pleasant at first, but it will set you free from the bondage of sin and hate and evil and lie and death. Because our bodies will die. That is inevitable thing. The question is only what then? If you listen to the first truthful witness, you will live forever, and with living, I mean living the real life. Please realize that you can be blackmailed and be a slave or blackmailer only while the truth is covered up. Once the truth is out, the blackmailer loses his power over you. But it is your choice. What will you do about that? Science today is in a big trouble. Science is claiming that the universe is expanding and above all, that it is accelerating, and that goes against all expectations and predictions of science itself. They will come up with new theory, they will, but it takes more and more time, and those theories have less and less sense. And there is one more thing one can observe when questioning a liar. He might start to mumble and speak in an unknown language. He starts to use words which we don't understand. He could say to us, "Well, are you stupid? You don't understand what I have just said? I'm telling you the truth." And exactly that science is doing. I had to study physics for 4 years that I was able to read scientific articles from a particular field in science. Science uses a language only scientists can understand. Science is caught by lying in the foundations from the beginning, but its defense is, "Well, maybe I am speaking the truth in those things which you don't understand." That is so pathetic, but many people count on that. That is very blind and very stupid faith. I think it was one of my professors who was quoting Richard Feynman saying, "You know the subject matter, physics, if you can explain the most difficult theories of science to your grandma." So if you are justifying science with saying, "Well, I see that science is lying in the things which I understand, in the things I can test, I can observe, but maybe it is telling me the truth in the things which I cannot understand." Well, what are those things? The most difficult theories in science can be explained to any grandma. Whose fault is it then that you don't understand those theories? Fault of science, who is not eager to explain them to you, or yours, because you are not willing to know? Or is it fault of you both? And the last story for today. What does it take to find God in science? Not much. Let me give you an example. One puffed up science lover might ask you, why is grass green? And let's say Amish could answer, because God made it so. Ha! You unintelligent being. No, it is because it reflects green spectrum of light. Okay, a simple-minded believer in Jesus might say. And do you know why does it reflect green light? The proud person continues to boast. Because God made it so? A simple-minded believer in Jesus Christ would ask. No, where are you from? From Middle Ages? God, 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 Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. We live in an age of enlightenment. It is because of chlorophyll. And why is chlorophyll reflecting green light? A simple-minded person might ask. And a proud person who wants to value himself above all others, that's very unloving, by the way, might tell simple-minded person something about quantum mechanics and orbitals. And that is the end of the story for him. So where is God? Only one more question is needed. Only one more question. And why is that so? The proud guy doesn't know. He might say only, because it is so. People who resembled him and who didn't want to acknowledge God 400 years ago had the same answer when they were asked, why grass is green? Why? Because it is. And 400 years later, by the all work of many dedicated believers in science, they are able to answer only 3 questions before they are again confronted with the same unpleasant fact. They don't know. But at the same time, they are not prepared to acknowledge that there is God behind that. It is a very simple thing, but it is nevertheless very deep. If you would know half of everything, God could be in the other half. And if you would know 99% of everything, God could be in that percent. But how much do you know? How much do people who believe science know? 0.00001%, and I am very generous when doing this estimation. Human knowledge is almost zero. It takes only a couple of questions to reveal ignorance of the brightest man or woman of this world. So why is then grass green? Because God made it so. This is a perfect answer and perfect explanation, you see. Science is not explaining, but only describing, only describing. Science is giving an answer to the question how things work, how God made this and that, how come the grass is green, how does grass reflect green light, how does chlorophyll reflect green light. And those questions could be easily confused with questions. Why grass reflects green light? Why? But it is not about why. It is about how, because the final why is never answered. Why are things as they are? Why are we living? What is the purpose of life? Science doesn't have the answer to those questions, and a huge mistake is if you assume that because of that there is no purpose, no meaning. Science only describes, and even in that it does a fairly lousy job, but it never ever explains. Let no one fool you. Till the next time, be well.